however, evidence. There is, however, real evidence as far as like first-hand accounts and testimony. Even this is from the same. This is moments before that clip that he posted about, by the way, to make me look like I'm just laughing about taking place and testimony from hostages. So that part is real. That did happen, which is very important, and that was a part of the UN investigation that was conducted. There is, however, evidence. There is, however, real evidence. I think you need to clarify systematically. People are struggling to understand what you mean. There is no... Hasan, please respond to it. It's very important. They're going to use it against you. What do you have to say to Hila's reasoning for Israel not letting forensic investigations that due to religious reasons they bury the body ASAP? That's a lie, and she's wrong. They did actually conduct forensic examination on many of the bodies. They didn't immediately bury them.
They did immediately bury a ton of them. That was a huge issue. Hasan has either read nothing about this, he probably, because he's both stupid and a propagandist. Like, this was a huge issue with Zaka. If he would have actually read that Haaretz article that that did supposedly point out, or not supposedly, it did point out that how Zaka kind of fucked up some of the investigation. If he actually read the article that he's citing, then they would say it in there that that is what Zaka does. And that was a huge issue related to the Zaka stuff, but okay.
She's literally wrong. They took the bodies to the Shura base. And they actually did look at the bodies. The issue, however, was that the initial forensic examination was not conducted by real specialists. Zaka ended up desecrating the bodies in the process and ruining any sort of on-the-spot kinetic forensic examination from taking place, because you have to look at the way that like bodies are presented to develop an understanding of what happened, like how this person died. They denied a real investigation to so many Israelis. Ethan tried to say that as well. Can you show us proof? Yes, I can. Hold on. I will.
Hold up.
It's so crazy that people like having this conversation and going over the very important details and having this conversation, going over these very important fucking details on what happened on October 7, and given the gruesome nature of these accusations, people just simply go, oh, you're just a fucking rape denier. And it's insane to me. It's actually fucking insane to me. Thoughts on you being accused of dog whistling? Yeah, dude, I'm totally. You got it.
You got it, dude.
Where is the freaking... Where's the Shura base article? Hold on, I'm going to pull it up in a second. Ugh. Anyway, but this is the UN report, by the way, the Sexual Violence and Conflict report. Stop saying, stop posting accusation to mirror, okay? He is currently adding every single one of his IG stories about you to a highlight reel. I don't care.
So petty.
The easy route in this situation is to just simply say, is to simply go along and not try to debunk some of this very dangerous misinformation. Here, the claim of extensive visual evidence with repeated statements of, we saw a photo of cut up vaginas, nails and vaginas, knives and vaginas is strewn throughout the original Gettleman Stella Schwartz work to browbeat the reader into submission, but it was all a contrived fake, a facade.
Were, objects like knives inserted in the genitalia of a woman. I mean, the team reviewed the photos and we did not find anything like that. And I did mention, like, one of the challenges faced by, of course, by the Israeli government, but which impacted our own work, was the fact that inaccurate, unreliable forensic conclusions were drawn by untrained volunteer first responders. And we give some examples. We give some examples in the report, such as interpreting an anal dilation as anal penetration, when, according to our forensic expert, we've extensive burn damage. This is what you get, anal dilation. And the
issue is that Hasan is like, not everything in that first report that came out. Also, by the way, that report said it was a preliminary report, and there were some things that were challenged from the report afterwards. Hasan will look at the stuff that was challenged from that report, but he'll never look at the stuff that is not challenged by the report, where they still do maintain that there was systematic sexual violence. So he always go, and this is what sucks too, because people like Hasan, is why they're the worst types of human beings in the world, is that if you have an honest actor who's willing to go back and look, it's like, okay, well, maybe we got this wrong, and maybe this could have been better. Like, they'll just cite those parts and claim that everything was a fucking lie, which is...
The position of the body...
Do you understand why the UN report itself said that, like, the circumstantial evidence is still important and valid to make an assessment, but it doesn't reach the normal standard of an investigation? This was a preliminary report that was conducted. A preliminary report is like a field breathalyzer. When you're drunk driving and a cop pulls you over, they first give you a field breathalyzer test. That field breathalyzer test is actually very inconsistent, but that's a test that allows the police to detain you, to take you to the fucking precinct, so you can use the real breathalyzer in the precinct.
Why is he so stupid about everything? What?
When you're drunk driving and a cop pulls you over, they first give you a field breathalyzer test. That field breathalyzer test is actually very inconsistent, but that's a test that allows the police to detain you to take you to the fucking precinct.
They can detain you if you refuse the test. They can detain you for any number of reasons, or arrest you if you fail a field sobriety test or if you refuse a test, because that's part of the agreement generally you make when you get a driver's license. I don't know if they only use the blood alcohol content of the blood test. I feel like they can probably use the one from the breathalyzer as well. I don't know where he gets this idea that they're completely and totally, wholly inaccurate. Even if you pass a breathalyzer test, I think they can still arrest you and take you to the station if you fail a field sobriety test as well, but okay.
So you can use the real breathalyzer in the precinct. That one is actually admissible in court.
The real breathalyzer in the precinct? Is he talking about a blood draw?
The field breathalyzer test is inadmissible in court. It doesn't mean that you're actually drunk. It's not proof to actually say you have conclusively driven drunk. It's only enough proof to detain you so they can take you to the fucking real deal. This is the exact same principle with a preliminary investigation. The UN conducted this preliminary investigation, and then Israel said you cannot conduct an actual investigation into this process. You just have to take our word for it. Do you understand? Why would they say no to this? Do you think that the fucking United Nations is anti-Semitic? Do you think that they're Hamas? Do you think that they're just going to look at all of this information and then make up a conclusion that makes Israel look bad erroneously? What are you, fucking nuts? That's what Israel thinks. It's psychotic. They do. Yeah, I know they think that, but it's fucking bullshit. That's bullshit.
Fucking bullshit, guys.
Do you understand? Yeah. Here's what Pramila Patton's UN report on sexual violence actually said. Section 2.1, first paragraph. Is this where this? In spite of its own complicity in the Israeli narrative, Patton's report undermines several of that narrative's fundamental tenets. Western mass media is currently engaged in a concerted campaign to ignore this, as it spins the report as vindication of claims that Hamas committed systematic rape on October 7. In fact, the report explicitly does not reach this conclusion. 2.1. The UN report does not find a pattern of sexual violence on October 7. This was a central claim of Jeffrey Gettleman, Anosh Schwartz, and Adam Sella on their now thoroughly discredited article, Screams.
I like how he's citing... Why can't you just read the actual UN report? I like how he's citing this Mondavi site, which is a dog shit, super far lefty weirdo website. But
without words, how Hamas weaponized sexual violence on October 7, which argued that Hamas fighters did not carry out rogue or isolated acts of rape, but rather engaged in a broader pattern of gender-based violence using rape as a weapon of war. However, when 52 minutes into Patton's March 4 press conference, Farnas Fasihi from The Times asked, would you say you found a pattern of sexual violence was a strategy of Hamas, both in October 7 attacks and in regards to the hostages? Patton answers definitively in the negative. Later in the press conference, when she is asked by Haaretz journalist Lisa Rosowski, am I correct that you cannot conclude that sexual violence was of a systematic character? Patton reiterates her answer stating, no, the distinguishing factor from the exercise that we set out to do, the gathering and verification of information for the purpose of its inclusion in the annual report of the Secretary General versus an investigation, that's where you would go into the elements of widespread or systematic. We did not go into that. Patton's report could neither establish the prevalence of sexual violence, nor draw conclusions on attribution of alleged violations to specific armed groups. And here's the Shura base reporting. The Shura base is where many of the original claims of widespread sexual assault, including broken pelvises, first emerged. It turned out it was based on one source who said a ton of demonstrably false things. Haaretz reported it out and found out that it was wrong. At the Shura base, to which most of the bodies were taken for purposes of identification, there were 5 forensic pathologists at work. In that capacity, they also examined the bodies that arrived completely or partially naked in order to examine the possibility of rape. According to a source knowledgeable about the details, there were no signs on any of those bodies attesting to sexual relations having taken place or mutilation of genitalia. These teams did not document a single case of sexual assault or case of genital mutilation. Beyond this, from inquiries, and this also goes along with the UN report. But Ethan still put it in his fucking video. Why did Ethan still put it in his fucking video? Because he's incredibly careless. The UN report.
Did he really just gloss over saying, wait, what?
These teams did not document a single case of sexual assault or case of genital mutilation. Beyond this, from inquiries, and this also goes along with the UN report. But Ethan still put it in, not document a single case of sexual assault. There were no signs. There were report. Here's the Shura base report.
I don't know what you said.
And this also goes along with the UN report. But Ethan still put it in his fucking video. Why did Ethan still put it in his fucking video? Because he's incredibly careless.
True.
That's
it's not perfect.
And here, this is the other guy.
It's not perfect.
I know. I can't believe how much time I've spent on this. I know it's fucking annoying. Okay, I know.
It's not perfect.
In the first, male 7 October 7 survivor recounts rape at the hands of Hamas terrorists. This guy was a Nova Festival guy. He literally said that on October 7, during Nova Festival, Hamas terrorists came and gang raped him. Guess what? He was suing the Israeli government for $133 million. And the Israeli government looked into his statements and found that he was making it up. And they...
Oh, so now the Israeli government is a good thing to cite here when we're trying to figure out if something actually happened. Okay, based.
Close the case.
Perfect.
That guy is another fabulist. Attackers laughed as they raped and murdered a woman in Israel on October 7th.
What would he say if a Palestinian tried to sue the Israeli government and the Israeli government said, we don't think this thing happened?
Witness says, this guy also was found to be fucking lying.
Perfect.
Of course, if you compare the raw numbers, Gazans have lost a lot more than Israelis. 40,000 people have died, and neighborhoods have been completely flattened during this war. And while we should keep their plight at the top of our minds at all time, it also doesn't mean that we should disregard the lives of the Jewish people who are also affected by this, even if their suffering on the whole is not
this war. Not a war, it's a genocide. I thought you recognized it as such.
as great.
So when he calls it war, that
you may
means
know
it's
that
not
I'm
a
an Israeli
genocide.
dual
Good,
citizen.
smart.
My
Okay.
wife is Israeli,
Gotcha.
my
Cute.
kids are half Israeli, and my entire in-law is Israeli. I lived there for 5 years, and I grew a closeness with the country and its people. One of the biggest issues between me, Hasan, and his community was that...
Yeah, notice how he says when he's talking about Gazans dying in the war, the terminology is very passive. Israelis are horrifyingly raped and mutilated and murdered by these Hamas terrorists, but Gazans are dying in a war. This right here is a dog whistle. If you want to know what a fucking dog whistle is, this is what a dog whistle is. Not the idea that someone fucking holding up a bleach sword is actually indicative of their anti-Semitism. That's something that you made up in your fucking mind. But this is a very carefully crafted dog whistle that I don't even think Ethan is smart enough to understand that he's actually attributing here. It's just so permanently lasered into his fucking consciousness that he doesn't recognize that he's doing passive voice when talking about Gazans and their plight. That's it. Okay? Passive voice is applied by mainstream outlets all the fucking time.
To delegitimize a
I'm in
genocide.
favor of a two-state solution, while they are in favor of a one-state solution. Their theory is that after the October 7th attack, Israel should just dissolve its borders and let Hamas enter Israel.
Yes, it would have been fucking, yeah. One state. One state at any point. Pre-October 7, post-October 7, at any point.
Well, at least he admits it, I guess.
Unrestrained.
Borders. Like, the argument is so fucking stupid that he's just like, no, you have to genocide them, dude. What do you mean? Like, I mean, you have to genocide them a little bit.
You shouldn't
I mean,
genocide
October
them.
7 happened.
You have to,
Look, I gave you a bunch of headlines to show you how much I care about rape, by the way.
And not have a
That I
state
just gave
anymore.
you a bunch of fucking headlines that I couldn't even recall. I couldn't even recount off the top of my mind when I was actually having a conversation with Hasan on Friday. It's one state right now, okay? It already is one state. That's what it is. Israel's an apartheid state.
What do you think Israel should have done in response to October 7th?
Instead of indiscriminately bombing Gaza, I think the first thing to do in that situation would be to dismantle the government in the way that it existed, like get Netanyahu out of power.
Okay. So you're saying Israel, in response, hold on, dude. You're saying in response to this terrorist attack, Israel should have dismantled their own government.
The first set of actions would be to democratically take Netanyahu out of power. Yes.
The problem is that Israel's been at war.
What does that mean? The first step would have been to democratically take Netanyahu out of power. So the first step was Israel should have, okay, we just got terrorist attack. What should we do? Let's hold an election and vote out our leader right now, and then we'll figure out after that. What?
Or
everybody hated Netanyahu after. What? I thought Ethan hated Netanyahu. Why would he take issue with that? Why? We're at war. Is it a war or is it a genocide?
It can be both, but maybe not for Hasan. It can't be, I guess. I don't know.
Between me and Ethan, that chatter is correct. Only one of us knows the name of Amit Shoshana, or Shoshana. I don't know how to say it. Ethan did not.
Only one of us knows the name of... I forgot their name.
Between me and Ethan, that chatter is correct. Only one of us knows the name of Amit Shoshana, or Shoshana. I don't know how to say it. Ethan did not.
Okay.
As he was constantly fucking bringing her testimony up and screaming at me in our debate, to which he openly recognized he actually weaponized later down the line to slander me.
Or with its neighbors for 70 plus
Stop asking me when friends are going to come along. I already told them not to come along yet, okay? I'm doing this on my own.
years. And it makes a lot of sense that there'd be some distrust there. Is it really insane to think that Jews, as an ethnic minority in Israel, would not be safe? After all, Israel is a country of refugees.
Yeah, you are a ethno-religious supremacist and also an anti-Arab racist. That's it. That's it.
True.
This is not a valid fear. This is the same exact fear that whites had in the apartheid structure in South Africa, that once blacks were free, they would turn around and do a reverse apartheid. This is exactly what people thought about restoring the racial pecking order in the aftermath of the abolition of slavery. You are a Jewish supremacist. That's it. When you're thinking about Israel, you are operating on supremacist thinking.
True.
Okay? Not to the same degree as a Kahanist or whatever, but that's absolutely what this is. These fucking barbaric Arabs, if we were to lower the boundary wall, would come in and fucking rape us to death. I can't take you seriously.
I mean, isn't that kind of what happened on October 7th? But
What? Explain to me what you mean. Yeah, imagine if Jews were a minority, the Palestinians would do to us what we've been doing to them. That's the only argument he has here, by the way. That's the only fucking argument he has. The suspicion that Palestinians would be just as depraved as the fucking Israeli government is to them.
True.
And for the record, he doesn't even understand that he's being fucking racist. And you will never be able to convince him that this is an unimaginably racist fucking thing to say. If I were to look through his goddamn comments here, no one would actually fucking cover the point. No one would actually turn around and be like, dude, what do you mean?
If the Jews didn't come from Europe after the Holocaust, they came from the surrounding Arab countries that expelled them in massive amounts following the 1948 war. In fact, there was more Jews displaced than Palestinians during the Nakba.
Yeah, this goes back to the famous conversation that we had where I said this was one of the worst claims that you made in your entire fucking context, Puke. The double Nakba theory. The idea that like Israel's planned exterminationist campaign towards the Palestinians was somehow a good enough fucking reason for why there was a continued domination of all Palestinians across the board.
I mean, it's just, that is true. I think it was almost 1 million Jews ended up being expelled or fled from all the surrounding Arab states, but whatever.
Because, sorry, Jews have to go somewhere. That is literally the entire reason why the Nakba is disgusting, okay? That is the reason why the Nakba is a ridiculous act of ethnic cleansing to begin with. Jews were in concentration camps in the fucking Holocaust, and the ones who actually survived this horrifying process turned around and in all but 3 years went to fucking Israel and killed Arabs, Palestinians that had nothing to do with the Holocaust. Think about that. How fucking insane that is. Sorry, we have nowhere to go. Guess we have to fucking kill you is not a reasonable conclusion.
That's definitely a fair reading of everything that happened. Okay.
Conclusion here. You cannot attribute the crimes of other fucking countries like Iraq or even countries that were under colonial occupation like Morocco or under the leadership of Vichy France. You're talking about fucking Algeria. Algeria didn't even have its own liberation movement at this point. And you are attributing to the fucking crimes of the colonially occupied Algeria to Arabs, and you're saying that all Arabs are just anti-Semitic, so Israel had to exist because there was nowhere else for them to go. It's fucking ridiculous. They could have gone back to those countries. They literally could have gone.
They literally could not have gone back to any of those Arab states, but okay, that's good.
Back. There was numerous instances where.
Or does he mean go back to Europe where they just got holocausted? Which one is he referring to there?
The PLO and the Arab councils got together and said, hey, we can do a right to return. We can do a double right to return. Jews that want to go back to the MENA region, if they want to go back, they can go back. I'll give you one great example of this, okay? Algeria is a great example of this because it's under French colonial occupation at this point. There's a lot of anti-Semitism, sure, but part of that, for example, was the reality that the FLN's demand for Algeria and during the Algerian liberation was that Jews living in Algeria would be citizens, would be actual Algerian citizens, but they would have to denounce their French citizenship for that process. So what did Jews do in Algeria that collaborated with the colonial apparatus at the time? They went to fucking France. They didn't fly to Israel because they were being pogromed. They fucking chose to be French citizens. That's what happened to the Algerian Jews. This is the reason why you can't fucking make this comparison between what took place in all these other Arab countries and what took place in Israel. None of these people are actually Palestinians. So why the fuck are the Palestinians constantly getting destroyed in this process? It's a nitpick, but calling Israelis the Jews is unironically perpetuating and promoting anti-Semitism en masse. It's gross. Thank you for actually pointing that out, Jay Mershon. You are absolutely fucking correct. I keep forgetting because there's so many different things that he said in 15 minutes that has taken me hours and hours and hours to fucking explain. They laughed at you for this. Oh yeah, the government of Iraq ran full-page advertisements calling for the return of its Iraqi Jews who had fled their country, Iraq, after the breakout of the 1948 war. Anyway, that doesn't mean that there wasn't fucking expulsions that were taking place. Not mass expulsion the same fucking way that Israel conducted, well, before Israel.
Yes, like the Arab states wanted to pull all of the Jewish people out of Israel because they wanted the Palestinians to be able to retake the land. No shit, Sherlock. Like, this is such a stupid, it's such a dumb fucking point. But whatever.
Zionist brigades conducted. But the idea that this is somehow comparable.
If that's even true, I mean, that would be the explanation for it. I haven't actually personally heard this claim before. Hasan has made it a few times. I might look into it, but everything Hasan says about this conflict is fucking retarded. So it's, my guess is either a flat out lie or it's just misrepresented. But like, even if it was true, it wouldn't matter. That's not them showing like goodwill to the Jewish people. That's them saying, fuck, we lost our fucking wars that we just tried in Israel proper. Can you guys like leave Israel just to come back to our countries now? Like, the point would be to shore up a demographic majority in the Palestinian area. But
dude, the Nakba is fucking gross. It's disgusting. It's a double genocide theory. That's all this is. Well, you know, in the aftermath of World War I, a lot of Germans felt displaced. They felt wronged by World War I. They took on incredible amounts of fucking casualties. So I guess it was permissible to do the Holocaust would be a fucking psychotic argument to make. And it's actually one that famous historian, not real historian, Daryl, whatever the fuck his name is, that goes on Joe Rogan, made time and time again. And I shit on him for making that fucking stupid ass argument. But when Ethan gets to say this about how Jews had nowhere to go, so they had to kill some fucking Arabs to kill some goddamn.
They didn't initially kill them when they were going to the mandatory Palestine area, but whatever.
Palestinian Arabs to take over their fucking land. What are you going to do about it, you know? No one ever thinks this is an insanely fucking racist thing to say because everyone thinks Arabs are not human, okay? It's fucking crazy.
What is this? Okay.
Sorry for the nitpick. The Vichy government fell after World War II. Algiers was under another government. No, I'm talking about instability against Jews under Vichy France was pre-World War II. I'm saying that, like, there are Algerian Jews that were harmed, okay, throughout this history. But all the way through World War II, the harm that was happening under the watchful gaze of fucking Vichy France in Algeria. Do you not understand my point? Because he looks at the entire scope of not even post-1948, pre-1948 anti-Semitism that took place in Arab countries, and then says all Arabs are like this. Daryl Cooper is the name of the Holocaust revisionist that I was talking about. Exactly. Daryl Cooper says, well, Germans had their feelings. Germans have had their fucking feelings hurt after World War I, so what are you going to do about it? Lo and behold, you know, that's why the Holocaust had to happen. That is the same argument that he's making here, you know? Germans experience a lot of economic instability.
The Holocaust doesn't naturally follow necessarily from Germans losing World War I. There's not like a direct line. There's some more work that you have to do there to get to the anti-Semitic part, to get to the stab in the back part. There's a little bit more work you have to do there, but I guess we can just make this meme. But
and therefore they became much more militant and said that the perpetrators were Jews.
1 million Jews. All of these surrounding Arab countries had vibrant Jewish communities in huge number, hundreds of thousands. Now, if you look at them, you're looking at close to, if not literally, 0 Jews left in these countries.
Just to give you an idea, here's a visual representation of the Jewish refugees after 1948. Morocco had 265,000 Jews. Now it has 2,000. Algeria had 104.
Well, thank God I fucking brought up Algeria, by the way. Yeah, where did the Algerian Jews go, Ethan? Algerian Jews were historically considered French citizens. They were collaborators with the French occupiers. The Algerian government, in the aftermath of the liberation, turned around and said, hey, you can be Algerian citizens. You just have to renounce your French citizenship. And lo and behold, they were like, fuck off. I'm going to France. I'm going to be French now. And that's precisely what took place here. You are making this comparison to seem like, you know, there was ethnic cleansing happening.
I don't know enough of the history of the Algeria stuff, but I do know that Palestinians tried this argument that Hasan is using right now, that Israelis could just go back like the people in Algeria did. I don't remember why, but even Palestinians eventually learned through their propaganda machine that like this was a bad argument, that they didn't want to use it anymore. The main reason being that you couldn't just tell Israeli people to go back because so many of them were now from the Middle East, and Israelis themselves didn't really consider themselves European in that way. So they dropped. Typically, you don't hear this comparison to Algeria or the AFN. Algerian, the fighter people there, usually they make the comparison instead to South Africa, or for some reason this Irish shit gets brought up, but South Africa was the model that they ended up switching to. But
Happening in fucking Algeria to Jews. Holy shit.
Or FLN.
What happened to the Jews in Iraq, Egypt, Yemen, Morocco, Lebanon after 1948, Hasan? Oh my God, he's still doing this. He's still fucking trying to put this point together as though this is like there was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to go, okay? There's nowhere to fucking go. You want to know why this argument is fucking moronic and is at the heart of Zionism? Because the Holocaust and centuries of pogroms and the fear is baked into the heart of Zionism. Israel must exist as a Jewish ethno-state, a Jewish ethno-supremacist state. It has to exist that way. Or
he keeps saying ethno-supremacist, but it's just more like a state where Jewish people feel that they are protected because they have a Jewish majority, and the Jewish majority is probably not going to Holocaust a Jewish majority. That is the feeling that they have. Yeah. Do you think that feeling is incorrect? I mean, you could try and argue against it, but...
Or else the Holocaust will happen again is literally at the fucking heart of this entire argument.
Yes, it is. That's true.
And that's precisely why he has to make it seem like all of the Jews in Algeria were actually dominated in an ethnic cleansing campaign in the same way that Israel, before it was Israel, the Zionist brigades had exterminated and also ethnically cleansed the Palestinians from their ancestral lands. It has to be this way, because otherwise the entire project fucking falls apart. Fuck. Do you understand how stupid this argument is?
Wait, so is that not true then? Or did he...
It monolithizes all Arabs across the board, okay? And it also turns around and puts the blame on the Palestinians. It is a never-ending cycle of, and a never-ending justification of why Palestinians must be brutalized by Israel, because that's where the fucking Israeli state is. There's nothing we can do about it. It has to be an ethnic majority. It has to be a Jewish ethno-majority state. Otherwise, the Holocaust will happen a million times over. That is the underlying argument here. I'm obviously exaggerating, but that is literally, that generational trauma of real violence that Jews were subjected to historically is baked into the reason why Israel must exist in the way that it does, in the violent way that it does, as an apartheid state sitting on top of indigenous land that Palestinians are not allowed to be inside of, because if they were, God forbid, then in Ethan's words, what did Ethan say? Hold on, let me pull it up again. Where the fuck was Ethan's statement on this? Not this one. The one where he says, you know, if the walls come down, then all Jews will be destroyed. Is it really that fucked up to make this inference that Palestinians, Hamas will kill us if the walls come down? Is this it? No, not this one. Oh, I mean, this is the one, yeah.
Any other in here?
To take over all of Israel and happily coexist with fucking Israelis. One state solution is the fucking literal, I mean, one state solution is like kind of the same thing. Because if you have a one state solution and the right to return, which I agree with, right? I mean, Israel has the right to return. If there's a state of Palestine, it makes sense. But if you're in one state, all that's going to happen is like everybody is trying to bring as many people there as possible. And like by the time, there frankly are a lot of Palestinians, right, in the area. And once Palestinians outnumber the Jews, basically anything is fair game for the Jews. Anything.
Why? What the fuck are you saying? What the fuck are you saying? Israel has a right to return. Why the fuck does Israel? Why can any Jewish man right now, anywhere around the planet, can fucking go to Israel right now and be able to get a goddamn house in the fucking West Bank that the government will help fund, or Christians United for Israel will help fund, but a fucking Palestinian that can't go back to see their ancestral village, partially because Israel most likely destroyed it and then built some ugly contraption on top of it. What a ridiculous fucking argument. Think about how fucking stupid this is. You can be Ethan Klein, an American Jew living in fucking Calabasas or wherever the fuck he grew up in California, and go live in Israel for 5 fucking years, but there's dudes on the Gaza boundary that cannot even...
I mean, like, yeah, Israel will do whatever they can to shore up their demographic majorities. Much the same, you can be a Palestinian living in Jordan who's been living there for 2 or 3 generations that has full Jordanian citizenship, that's enjoyed full Jordanian rights for the entirety of your life and your father and mother's life there, and still be considered a refugee from Palestine. I mean, yeah, both sides do really retarded shit when it comes to fucking refugees because they're all fighting over the demographic majority over there. That's kind of the name of the game, yeah.
Over the fucking Gaza envelope to see their parents' houses. How the fuck is that appropriate?
Like, listen to what you just said. Their parents' houses. You're a refugee because your parents got kicked out of a place. Like, how many refugees? Like, is it going to be my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather who lived in some area, so I'm a refugee from there? Yeah, it's kind of silly. But I mean, this is what they do because it's all fighting over demographics there.
How is that acceptable? It's bullshit. It's fucking insane. I feel like I'm losing my mind having this conversation. Having this conversation with Americans feels so crazy where you're like, these guys are literally trapped in an open air prison. Okay, they're trapped in a fucking open air prison. They can't go into Israel. And guys will literally turn around and tell you like, what do you mean Israel's fucking awesome, dude? Yeah, I mean, don't look over at the open air prison. There's a genocide going on there. But also anyone that fucking speaks out against that genocide is actually, lo and behold, an anti-Semite. He misspoke when he said Israel, just a heads up before he focuses on that. What are you talking about? What?
And I'm sorry, but Hamas, the governing fucking body there wants to kill all the fucking Jews.
Yeah, Morocco protected Moroccan Jews from the Vichy government during the Holocaust, finally acknowledged by the Israeli government recently. Anti-Semitism is not as prevalent in Arab society as either.
Legit question. How did the Jews end up in Israel in the first place? Did they actually displace the Palestinian people? It's been a long time since I've debated this or argued this, but my understanding is basically, I believe, there were conferences of Jewish people who were trying to figure out, like, you know, I feel like we should all go live somewhere because our shit is kind of fucked and we keep getting fucked everywhere in the world. Theodor Herzl is considered, I think, the founder of modern Zionism. And I think Herzl's idea was, okay, well, let's look around the planet and let's see if we can find a place where, you know, Jewish people can go and live. And I think they considered a couple countries, and I think eventually they kind of settled on Israel. And the problem kind of was the Ottoman Empire controlled the historic lands of Israel. They controlled that area in the Levant at the time. And so Jewish people tried to kind of like sneakily buy land up because the Ottomans didn't want Jews buying land or migrating there. So I think they would buy through shell companies or whatever, some things from Ottoman landholders. A couple of groups of Jews tried to immigrate early on, first and second Aliyah, I think mainly from Eastern Russia, the Russian Empire, because they kind of got fucked up there. And then in other places, the first 2 waves kind of fucked up and they didn't really do much. And then eventually, I think there was a wave in, I want to say it was the early 1900s, maybe 1910 or whatever, that started to do a little bit better. They started to craft all these plans for like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. Jewish people are going to sell all their shit here in wherever they're moving from or give it to whatever the fucking country. We're going to provide funding and finance for it. And we're going to do this thing called like labor Zionism. So basically, you're committing to a life of fucked upness. You're going to move here. This place sucks. We're going to buy land. We're going to have you move there. We're going to kick the Palestinians or whoever lives. They weren't Palestinians at the time, but we're going to kick the Arabs off the land we buy. And then Jews are going to go there. You're going to work the land. You're going to make this a habitable place. Inhabitable place. Because it basically just the land sucked. Jewish people started going there, and then eventually there was the Balfour Declaration, I think in 1914. A bunch of Jews were able to successfully petition the British government and say, hey, listen, can you guys please make a promise? We'll help fund your war and all that shit. Can you please make a promise to us that you'll like carve out some place for us after the war where we can go and live? Obviously, there is a defeat on the side of World War I of the... was it the Axis or Allies and Axis, or was that just World War II? There was a bunch of dissolution of big kingdoms after World War I. Fucking the Germanic bullshit, Austria-Hungary, I think, the Ottoman Empire, like all of these massive, or Balfour Declaration might have been 1917, not 1914. But when you had the dissolution of all these like massive territories, these huge empires, I think the British and the French kind of were like, okay, well, how do we figure out these territories? We probably don't want to control and run all of this shit because I think they were already getting... I think they were already kind of having issues running colonies because there were like rebellions and it was kind of getting fucked. So they're like, we're going to make mandates on places. We're going to have these mandates be basically, we're going to let the people here kind of figure out how they're going to govern shit. And then in like 20 or 30 years, we're just going to hand it over to them and let them do stuff instead of trying to run it ourselves because that was like a clusterfuck. More Jewish people were buying land and moving into the Levant. Eventually, after 1917, after the Ottoman Empire fell apart and all these mandates started getting written for Iraq, for Syria, for everybody else, I think Arabs started to see Jewish people moving into the Levant, and they were like, okay, wait, hold on. We're not sure how we feel about this. There was kind of like some back and forth fighting. You had initially Jews and Arabs kind of got along, but then sometimes the Jews would fight the Arabs. Sometimes the Arabs would try to fight and kill the Jews because they didn't like the idea of a bunch of them moving in. I think that this, when was that first white paper? Oh, I don't even remember. There was a big white paper that recommended separation. I should remember the name of this. There's a name for this, a specific name for this. I'm I don't remember the name of the guy. Somebody will say it, maybe. But basically, was it Poole? The Poole report? The something report? Peel. The Peel. It was Peel. I think this happened in, I believe this preceded the Arab uprising. So I want to say 35 or 36. Oh, Peel Commission. It would have been 36. Okay. I think the Peel Commission, because obviously there's a bunch of fighting between the Arabs and the Jews because they're not getting along. And then the Brits are basically like, okay, well, we're going to figure out what the fuck is going on here because you guys are like massacring each other and it seems like you're not getting along. The Peel Commission happens. They take a big look at the land. They're like, okay, well, shit is fucked. We've done a few other white papers, but now like shit is really fucked. They're not getting along. We probably need to like divide this place and give the Jews their state and maybe the Arabs their state. After that, the Arabs get ultra ass pained and they start going hard, fighting against both the British and the Jews. And so you have this huge Arab revolt in the Levant, in the Palestine area, where the British basically come in and they fuck up all of the Palestinians. So they're like, you guys aren't behaving, fuck you, from 36 to 39. And then I think in 1940, I think the Brits also say to the Jews, okay, listen, we fucked up the Arabs down here because they were misbehaving, but also you guys are now fucked too, so you're not allowed to migrate to Palestine anymore. And the Jews at the time started to realize, hey, so we just caught wind that we're getting kind of holocausted. Can we please like move our people down here? You made a promise to us. And the Brits were like, no, there's like too much bullshit. Fuck you guys. You're causing too much trouble. So then the Jews took their turn for the next 5 years, attacking the British. I think this climaxed in the big, is it the King David hotel bombing, which was like one of the largest terrorist attacks, I think, that happened against the Brits at the time. One of the more radical factions of the pre-Israeli, they called themselves, they were part of the Yeshuv. I think it was the Irgun or the Lehi. One of the two radical factions bombed this hotel. And then after 44, the Brits were like, okay, well, fuck all of you guys. You guys are just attacking us and attacking each other. You guys are gay and cringe. And so we're leaving. And then I think Britain basically packed their shit up. The Arabs and the Jews kind of like were eyeing each other unsteadily, not sure what happened. And then I think basically the tensions continue to boil over until 47. I think the Arabs begin to fight in a more coordinated manner against the Jews, basically saying like, okay, well, fuck you guys. You're getting kicked out of here. This mandate expires soon. We're not dividing this land, so get the fuck out. The Jews manage to somehow hold on and survive. They ship in some weapons from Czechoslovakia. They, fight back. Eventually, they start to win from 47 to 48. The mandate expires. Israel declares their independence. And then all of the surrounding Arab states are looking and they're like, okay, well, hold on. The Palestinian people down here are losing. They're getting kicked out of their place. So we're all going to come in and fight. And then they have the big war. And then that's like I think that's like a super abbreviated version. I could probably abbreviate that more. And I might have left out important stuff or added to that. But more or less, it's like just a fucked up back and forth. Different people promised different sides, different things. And then shit got fucked. I think more or less. Weren't the Jews and Muslims originally getting along until the Jews started to be successful and get money from other Jews overseas? There's differences. People will say things like they got along well. Muslims will say we were fine. Jews will say, well, actually, there were a number of massacres that happened all throughout Ottoman history, which is true. And then Jews will also say, and also we kind of lived okayly under Muslims, but that's because we lived as second-class citizens, which is also true. Muslims will counter and say, you might have lived as second-class citizens, but it wasn't like the worst second-class citizens, which is also kind of true. So you take that for what it is, I guess, yeah.
Then wants everyone to believe if it's as mindless ancient ficture as the Arabs. Herzog hails Moroccan king for country's treatment of Jews during the Holocaust. Oh, all of these countries had very different attitudes. Okay, was there a lot of tension amongst the native Jewish population in these Arab nations? Yes, there was. But you cannot attribute the individual responses to the Nakba and how horrifying that was for people back to the past.
Someone already asked this, but how were the Palestinians getting kicked out if the Jews were buying up the land? Was it a combination of Jews buying land and kicking people out of surrounding land? So at the time, land was owned by massive tenants of basically AFK Turks or Arabs. And what would happen is Jews would come in and they would basically, through shell companies and stuff, they would basically buy up the land that these big landowners had. And once they would buy the land, they would start to ship in Jews. So they believed in this concept. I think it was called labor Zionism, or there might be a more specific term for it. But basically, if Jews were going to find salvation in the lands of Israel, it had to be through their own work. They didn't want to rely on other people. They didn't want other people helping them because they felt like they were basically getting fucked at every point in history. Now, keep in mind, this would have been prior to even the Holocaust. So Jews already felt like they were getting fucked, and they kind of were, even prior to the Holocaust. So Jews, it might be called conquest through labor or something. Something like that. But basically, when they showed up, after they bought the land, they would pay the Palestinians the fair rate for the villages or whatever they were buying. But of course, Palestinians felt like that still sucked shit. For them, it probably did. But they bought the land, they kicked the Palestinians off, or the Arabs at the time off, and then they started doing all the shit themselves. Now, If they would have kept them there and worked with them or under them, I think people would have just accused them of enslaving them. So, I mean, that would have been a lose-lose anyways. There were huge waves of immigration in the late 1800s because of Russian pogroms. Kind of. There were huge attempts. The first two aliyahs tried to go to the Levant to do this, but they fucked off. I think like 90% of them eventually left because they were like, this actually sucks shit. We go to this land, it sucks shit, and it does. Israel it is not the land of milk and honey. That's the United States. There's no natural resources. It's dog shit land. They had to fight wars with Syria and shit just to get access to the water table in the north. What's the name of that sea? Is it the Galilee? To even be allowed to partition water to come down to the place just sucked. So the first few groups of Jews that went to the Levant, it was a shitty time, and they eventually just left and went back to, I think, Europe. They're like, fuck this. Or to America, maybe.
Palestinians who are suffering in this process. And yeah, there are literally a right to return that was afforded to Jews over and over again. You know who didn't want that? Israel. Because everybody fucking knows. That's it. You're there. You don't want to go anywhere else. That's it. God forbid, dude. God forbid.
You think the way Israel gained its independence and the way they did it was justified, or were they wrong in the way that they did it? That's a really interesting question, and I don't know if that question has an easy answer. The problem is that you have to engage with land ownership, and that can be very difficult to figure out in terms of what you feel is like morally acceptable. So, for instance, it was the fact of the matter that after World War I, the Ottoman Empire dissolved. So all of that land was open land. Nobody technically, who was going to lay claim to that land. Now, it came that after World War I, the Brits and the French, I think it was just those two, decided to divvy up all the land. They drew borders for different areas based on where they thought people lived. And they it was League of Nations, I believe at the time, right? They divvied up this place and they called it mandates. So basically the French were given mandates over different countries. The British were given mandates over different countries or different sections of land. And the goal with the mandates was to foster some kind of group there that would eventually grow into its own population. And then the strongest group would inherit that land after the mandate expired. And then that would be the country there afterwards. And I think this worked out for the most part in most-ish places, save for, I think, the Turks, revolted, and they got their own area. I don't know why they revolted against mandate. And Egypt might have, because Egypt was a strong thing. I think it was like they were called like the Khediverite or some bullshit of Egypt under the Ottomans. So I don't know if they fought in a different way for their thing, but for the most part, it kind of ended up working out for most people. But obviously, the people living in mandatory Palestine, they looked at their area and they're like, wait, hold on. Iraq, Jordan, like all these people kind of got their own countries. Why are all these fucking European Jews coming into our place? This is kind of bullshit. So they had a right to feel stiffed there, right? So you can argue that the Palestinians felt a little bit fucked because Jews were buying land from owners that they didn't even know and then kicking them off this land. They felt like Jews didn't even belong here because a lot of them were coming from Europe. That is true. That is a true claim that you can make prior to 48. A lot of Jews were coming from Europe or from Russia. And then they felt like they were getting backstabbed by the British and the French, by the League of Nations. It's like, well, hold on. You promised everybody here that they were going to get their own country. We have the ability to have our own kind of like Ottoman Empire again without these Turk fuckers ruling over us Arabs. We can finally have our own pan-Arab nation, okay, without somebody else ruling over us, and now you're exporting a whole bunch of your fucking Jews to us. What the fuck? So the Palestinians had a right to be upset there, but the Jews would also say, well, hold on. We literally secured concessions from Balfour, from the UK, or from Britain or whatever, I don't know if they were in the UK yet, in 1917, we had promises from them that if they won this war, that we were going to get to move here, right? They won the war. The Ottoman Empire dissolved. You can't fucking say shit about who owns or whatever fucking land. You guys literally lost the war. You lost. So the Brits promised us that we could come and move here and we could have a place here. You know, we bought this land from the owners, fair and square. We didn't move in and conduct a warfare to kick you off. We moved in and we bought the land from the people that we did. We worked the land that we bought. We did everything under the guidance of the Brits that owned this mandate and the right to the mandate at the time. And where the fuck else we were going to go? We literally got Holocausted in Europe. We were getting anti-Semited fucking in every other country. Like, we get fucked in every other place. This is literally the only fucking place we can go. So you guys have 50 million countries that you can go to, and you can even stay here, by the way. We don't even care if you're here. We just want like the places that we've kind of like bought and worked. So, you know, I feel like in the very beginning, I think both sides kind of had a right to feel pissed off about what was going on. I think the Palestinians or the Arabs there kind of felt like they were getting shafted by Europe because these Jews were being basically exported from Europe and then imported into their lands. And I think the Jews probably had a right to feel like, well, we need to go somewhere because literally everybody else is fucking destroying us, and Brits promised us this area. So I think they both had pretty strong claims in the beginning. I don't know if there's like a clear right or wrong at the very start of it, I would say. Was there any effort by the League of Nations or any other government to encourage the Palestinians to find a leader before the mandate expired? I don't know what was going on. There was the Mufti guy or whatever in Jerusalem, but that guy, he threw his lot in with the Nazis, and he was a little bit, he was actually super unhinged. The issue was, I think that like pan-Arabism was always kind of a meme. Like they thought that the Arabs were all, it's kind of funny because racist people will say that Arabs are all the same, but then some Arabs want to say that all Arabs are the same. But the reality is I think that people will point to the Middle East and go, wow, they drew these borders up totally arbitrarily. But the borders stuck, I think, pretty well. They drew them fairly decently. And I think that all of the surrounding Arab countries really did have, like the monarchs and the kingdoms that would come out of these kind of had their own interests. And I think that was a big issue that the Palestinians were always fighting against. Is on one side, the Palestinians wanted to invoke this idea of pan-Arab fights against Israel. So like there was this huge war where all the Arabs came in and fought a war against Israel. But it seemed like these countries were probably a little bit more interested in their own stuff at the time. So like Jordan probably could have kept fighting after it took over most of the West Bank. It didn't. Egypt basically fucked over the Palestinians when it captured most of Gaza, right? I think they created some Palestinian government in Gaza, and within a year they recalled it back to Cairo and then disbanded it. Jordan formally annexed the West Bank and made all of those Palestinians Jordanian citizens. They're like, oh look, come join us now. So everybody was kind of like on their own shit. Syria was basically every 2 years was basically having a new government because that place was just completely and totally fucked. Lebanon was having their fucking orgy experimentation of all their 3 different groups of people, and then the Gulf states literally don't exist. I don't know. I still don't think they exist. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's always like in every war, Saudi Arabia would send like 2 planes and a tank. And yeah, so eventually the Arabs that lived in the mandatory Palestinian area that would call themselves the Palestinians kind of got fucked by everybody. They got fucked by the Israelis. They kind of got fucked by the British and the French. They got fucked kind of by their Arab neighbors. Yeah, they basically just got fucked by everybody. Yeah. Was there a time where the Palestinians made a good faith effort for peace and Israel wouldn't budge? Post 48, probably not. Pre 48, I mean, up until I think 29 was that the Haran massacre. The Arabs and the Jews were kind of getting along, ish. 29, yeah. Did I say 29 or 39? 29, they're kind of getting along, but the tension was growing more and more and more as more Jews moved in, and then also. I'm going to sound like a Western supremacist, so I don't know. You also had the issue that a lot of the people that lived under the Ottoman Empire, these people were just like, they were like nomadic wanderers who did like subsistence living. So they would they have a village and they would have like herd their animals and they'd like grow their crops. And that's basically all they did. There were some other important contributions. I think like there's a name of a famous fruit that comes from Palestine that came from Palestinian farmers, the Jaffa orange, I think it might be called. But like that was kind of like they were happy to exist that way. When Jews came in, Jews were very much like of a Western European mindset, and they wanted to cultivate mass swaths of land. They wanted to grow massive cities. They had a very European approach to things. And I think as time went on, that divide between the people was very upsetting to the Arabs that were there, because now Jews had shown up, and in a relatively short period of time, they started to build these pretty massive cities from the sands of kind of where these Arab villages were prior to this. Now, this picture is a little bit one-sided because there was a whole port that they don't show on the other side, but there's a famous picture of, I think it was Jaffa before and after, that Jews like to show to jerk off like how much they developed the land or whatever. I'm never going to be able to find this picture. I think it was Jaffa, right? It wasn't Tel Aviv. You see like a group of like Jewish people standing with like sand behind them, I think, and then there's like the after, in a few years, they like build a pretty massive city up. And then even in the Peel Commission, I think in 36, they say that like, we understand that some of the Arabs don't want the Jews here, but these people have ended up becoming like insanely economically prosperous, such that like we could probably improve Arab standard of living because these Jews are going to end up paying so much in taxes because of how much they've developed the land. But I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously you're having this growing divide between the two people. Because the Palestinians feel like they're losing hold of their claim to a state afterwards. They're not, because remember, after the mandate expires, one group of people will inherit the land and form a state afterwards. That's why the UN tried to create like a partition between the two, because otherwise it was just going to be an Israeli state, or it would just be a Palestinian state, right? Because that's how the mandates kind of worked. Tel Aviv was founded on the outskirts of Jaffa. Yeah, but there's just this famous picture. where are my crazy Zionists in chat? Every Zionist loves this fucking picture. It's like, look at how amazing the Jews were compared to these worthless fucking Arabs or whatever. Oh, it was this. It might be this pic. I feel like isn't there an after as well, where they're like, this is basically the before. There's not really much here. Now there is a port on the other side, but they end up. This is the picture, yeah. But they end up building up like quite a lot here. But it's because they came from like this kind of like Western European mindset where they wanted to industrialize, engage in trade, have these connections with the Western world, and all of that. You always say that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the USA have like no military, but how is that true since they spend more on military as a percent of GDP than the USA? I don't know. I say that as like a half meme. I don't know what they do. Like when I look at all of the Israeli-Arab wars, the support from like these other countries is literally them sending like a tank or a couple of airplanes. Like it seems like they don't ever do anything. And there was this huge war in Yemen that Egypt participated in, and I don't know how much the Gulf states actually contribute. Supposedly they have militaries and stuff, but you look at like the Iraq-Iran war, these are huge. This is a huge conflict. It's like 1 million people dead between both sides. And then you look at all the conflicts between like Egypt, between Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Israel, and you get these wars where there are these actual fights. And then it feels like the Gulf states say they have militaries and shit, but like I just don't know what they do ever. Like I think, was this during when Egypt was fighting down in Yemen in the 60s? I think Saudi Arabia went to fly like 10 planes of supplies to like help somebody in Yemen, and like the people just ended up flying to Egypt. They were like, fuck this. It was just like, I don't know, it just seemed like retarded. I don't know what the fuck they ever do. I have no idea. But that just might be my ignorance. I just don't know. I literally have no idea militarily what goes on with these countries over the past 100 years. I guess they do something, because it's not like they got took over by anybody else, but up until very recently, Gulf states had very small populations with undeveloped land and a lot of oil. They largely relied on the USA for doing it. Yeah, that might be it. Maybe because of the lack of oil refinement or something. Maybe they just weren't extracting much, so their economies weren't that big. Maybe. But yeah. Anyway, like I would say from the beginning, I think that the Israelis and the Jews and the Palestinians, the Arabs, like I think they both had pretty legitimate rights to try to fight. Like I think they were both justified in their fighting against each other for the land. I think you'd have to be pretty silly to deny that. But I mean, eventually at some point you have to say like, okay, like I think we're done fighting at this point, right? But I don't know how much more of this we're gonna watch. This is fucking cringe, but this is so much less entertaining than I thought it would be. Let me use the restroom 1 second. I want to know how Egypt, Jordan, and the other one lost to Israel in 6 days. So the problem with, okay, so there's a couple things to keep in mind. Okay, so I believe in 56, I think this is called the Suez crisis. There's a guy in Egypt who's a leader called Nasser, and Nasser has this dream of uniting all of the Arabs under a single Arab empire. So much so that for a while, Syria and Egypt are literally the same state. Fuck, I looked this up the other day because I keep forgetting what it's called. The United Arab Republic from 58 to 71. So this would be after the Suez crisis, but they're the same country for a while. People don't know this sometimes, but I think at some point, I don't remember why, Nasser basically tells everybody like the Suez Canal, this is my canal now. I'm not going to allow, ships to pass through unless I want to. Fuck you guys, like suck my dick. And I think Israel and Britain and France are not happy about this. And Israel kind of like, I don't remember the exacts of this. It's been so long, and nobody ever brings up the Suez crisis because it's not a big war, although it was kind of a big one. Israel finds a way to goof basically and make it worse than it actually seems. Egypt was, I think, genuinely trying to say that they were going to control stuff through the Suez Canal from now on, and they weren't going to allow anybody to go through if they didn't like them. But Israel finds a way to make a little bit of a goof to make it look worse than it actually is. And I think the Brits and the French are all on board with this plan. I believe that in the course of the Suez crisis, I think Israel actually manages to gain control of parts of the Sinai, the entire Sinai, or parts of it. And I think eventually the U.S., I don't remember who the president was at the time, fuck. Somebody the name. I think eventually the U.S. steps in, and the U.S. is like, you guys need to fuck off. Don't do this shit. You guys are fucking everything up. There's no reason to escalate war in this area. And eventually the Brits and the French leave, or they kind of like pull their support from this. And then Israel feels a little bit cut because they're like, oh no. Because on the founding of Israel in 48, Ben Gurion had this dream because Israelis saw themselves as Western people They wanted to be part of the West. They wanted security guarantees from the West, not from America, because people didn't think quite as much of America yet. Although after World War II, they were kind of seen as a big boy, but mainly from Britain and France, because I don't think Britain and France have been totally fucking humiliated yet. But initially, they were looking at Britain and France. They were like, we want to get peace consent, or we want to get some kind of security guarantees from Britain and France, and they weren't ever able to get that. And then they kind of looked to the U.S. to get it afterwards, but that would come much later. But anyway, so that Suez crisis happens in 56. The U.S. tells everybody to fuck off, but that's done in secret. So Israel leaves the Sinai, Britain and France fuck off, and now the entire Arab world is kind of looking to Nasser, I think, in Egypt. Is like, holy shit, you literally big-dicked, like, Israel and Britain and France and Europe, you big-dicked them out of the Sinai. Like, you're an actual fucking god. And Nasser's, like, riding high on his shit, and he's like, we're going to go down to fucking Yemen, and we're going to fucking fight some shit down here. He ends up committing tens of thousands of troops down there, and he's just like, I can big-dick literally all of this. Like, I'm a god. And it gets to the point to where, I think after 56, like, the UN puts peacekeepers in the Sinai. They're like, hey guys, like, don't fight anymore. We're gonna have like peacekeepers down here to make sure everybody's like chill and happy. And I don't know. During the course of this, so from 56 to 67. Okay, so Nasser's big dick in it. There's like a civil war-ish thing going on in Yemen. There are UN peacekeepers in the Sinai. Israel, for this whole time, is like trying to basically get on its feet. It doesn't have any security guarantees from the West. Even to survive the initial war, it had to smuggle in weapons from Czechoslovakia. They can buy weapons from France and Great Britain, but they're not getting like massive support. And the Soviets are giving massive support to the Arab states. So Israel's kind of like looking around. They're having to fight off what they call terrorist attacks from Fedayeen, which are Palestinians that left the territory in 48 and then are coming back. Some of them were legitimately committing terrorist attacks that were being hosted from Jordanian soil, from Egyptian soil, from Syrian soil. Some of them were just people trying to go back to their village because they just wanted to walk back. So in some cases, you have stories that nobody denies at this point, even Israel, where there's just like people who are trying to walk back to their old village, and they're like Israeli snipers that are just like fucking murdering these people as they're trying to come back. Just like, get the fuck out of here, you're not coming back. And then in other cases, there will be terrorist attacks. There'll be whatever you call it, attacks. Everybody's a terrorist in this region at this point, I guess. There'll be attacks on Israeli soil. And what Israel says is, if you attack us or if you host any attacks from your soil, we're literally going to come back and we're going to fucking bomb the shit out of anything nearby. So you need to discourage this. Fuck you guys. And Israel does so much of this retribution as a way to kind of like push people off from coming into Israel. Like, we figure if we bomb you hard enough, you'll stop Palestinians from terrorist attacking us. And this is such an unpopular thing in these countries that the king of Jordan, is it Hussein at this point? Like, I think it's the king of Jordan starts goading on Nasser, and he's like, you say you're so cool and you say you were so big, but like, Israel is literally fucking all of our shit up. They're fucking shit up in Syria. They're fucking shit up in Jordan. Like, what are you doing, Nasser? And Nasser's like, well, I'm a big boy. And Jordan and Syria are basically saying, you're not. You're actually a pussy ass bitch. You're not doing fuck all. Eventually Nasser's like, okay. First, he kicks out all of the UN peacekeepers from the Sinai, and he's like, fuck the UN peacekeepers. He starts giving speeches where he's like, listen, if we have to fight Israel, it's going to be a war of total annihilation, okay? He talks to trade unionists. There's a famous speech where he says, we're going to remove every single Jew. The reality is probably Nasser was talking shit. He was losing all of his people they were super war fatigued in Yemen. I don't even know why the fuck they were fighting down there. Probably some British shit. The Port of Aden and all that bullshit is down there. I actually don't even know. Yemen is just a clusterfuck of horrible shit. Yemen is like the Afghanistan of the Gulf, I guess, where you just send armies there to die. But Nasser he kicked all these people out of the Suez Canal, all the UN peacekeeper forces. He was, having all this insane rhetoric, probably just to please the Arab streets. Right? He just wanted to maintain his, goodwill and the standings of the people. But the problem is the Israelis looked at this, and their like worst fear ever was like coming true, where they were like, okay, wait a second. Where there's a unified front now between Jordan, Syria, and Egypt, right? Because at this point, I think Egypt and Syria were the same country, and then Jordan is obviously still. Remember the attacks that Jordan can do into Israel are very severe, because they would call this the rib cage of Tel Aviv. It was like 10 kilometers, I think, from the actual Mediterranean to Jordanian territory, because they had the entire West Bank. They owned all of that. So Israel's getting attacked. There's a lot of terrorist attacks. They're kind of responding on all sides. Nasser is stepping up his rhetoric. He says he's closing the Suez Canal again, which was already a casus belli for a war, 10 years ago. And Israel's like looking at all of this shit and like, okay, well, this is not good. We're going to get fucked, okay? And so Israel goes to the United States. They go to Europe. Anybody want to give us security guarantees? The entire world's like, you can figure it out. Like, good luck. Like, you'll be fine. Whatever the fuck. And so Israel decides to this is the beginning of the 6-day war on We looked this up. What was it? May 10th? May 5th? June 5th. It was either May 5th or June 5th. Israel launches a surprise attack on Egypt with their planes, basically. So Israel flies all of their planes to Egypt and bombs the fuck out of all of their airfields. And they've been training their pilots like a ton. So you're having these planes flying where I think normally you'd fly like 1 or 2 sorties per day. These people with these pilots and their crew were doing like 4 missions per day. So they do these huge fucking bombing runs where they basically eviscerate the entire Egyptian airfield before the war has even begun, before they've even responded. And then I think Nasser ends up ringing up the Jordanian king and he says, hey, you see those planes that are going to Israel? We're bombing them right now. We're fucking them up. Even though those weren't Egyptian planes, those were Israeli planes flying back. And the Jordanian king is like, okay, fuck it. We're going to go and fuck up Israel now then. And I think Moshe Dayan himself, who was the prime minister, no, not the prime minister, he was the minister of defense at the time. I think Dayan himself tells the Jordanian king, like, you don't want to attack us. If you attack us, we're going to fuck your shit up. And I think the quote from the Jordanian king is, the die has been cast. And so from the West Bank, Jordan tries to attack. And then Israel fucks their shit up really hard because nobody has any air superiority now except for the Jews. And then they end up moving in and basically taking over the entirety of the fucking West Bank. Syria tries something, but Syria's just fucked. Syria's always a clusterfuck. And basically in like 6 days out of nowhere, because of preemptive Israeli strike, because the Egyptians' army was already exhausted from all of the dumb shit they were doing in Yemen, and because Nasser was more bark than bite. And because Israeli troops were like, a lot of these people, remember, came from Europe. They had already been in wars. They did real warfare. A lot of the Arabic armies were kind of like, they promoted family members and, they were kind of like chill and cool, but they didn't have as much combat experience. And honestly, like, look at Jews as like hook-nosed fucking bankers. Like, they don't even view these people as like combat-ready people. But in 6 days, Israel is basically able to clean up in this like massive fucking war that this is like the permanent fucking mind fuck to all of the surrounding Arab states over this. But yeah, so basically they won because it was a preemptive strike. Nasser probably wasn't ready for war, even though he basically signaled that he was verbally and by kicking people out of the Sinai. The Egyptian army, which would have been the main fighting army, was already exhausted from their huge commitments to Yemen. And then the Arab countries just hadn't really figured out yet how to conduct themselves in a coordinated way to do warfare. And Nasser lied to Jordan when he said that the planes flying back to Israel were his planes, and then they walked their whole shit into a fucking bomb field. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a lot of memes.
40,000. Now it has about 50. Iraq had 150,000 Jews. Now
Arab is the ethnicity. Arabic is the language. Sorry. Arab armies. Arabic is a language. Sure.
God forbid, dude. God forbid.
40,000. Now it has about 50. Iraq had 150,000 Jews. Now 10. And I want to give a special shout out to my boy over in Afghanistan. One known Jew. We know him.
Oh. Bro, Afghanistan isn't even a fucking Middle Eastern country. It's not even Arabs. Afghanistan is not even fucking Arabs at that point. It's just, I guess it's Muslim. That's what it is, right?
No, I mean, this is true. Afghanistan is not technically a Middle Eastern country. It's part of the greater Middle East region. But like, I mean, everybody refers to, I've heard it referred to as the greater Middle East, or MENA for Middle East and North Africa is usually what people are talking about. But technically, I think Pakistan and Afghanistan are not part of technically the Middle East. But it's, I mean...
That's what the fuck he's talking about. I love this, by the way, because one must ask the question, because remember, the whole point is like Arabs have antiquated anti-Semitic tendencies, right? And that's why fucking, as Ethan claims, Arab anti-Semitism is the reason why Jews became Zionists, right? That's what he said. Now, what's really interesting about this is, like, if you look at this, it says Jewish refugees from the Middle East, an estimated 820,000 Jews fled violence and discrimination in their homelands between 1948 and 1972. Now, this is obviously fucking propaganda bullshit, okay? That monolithizes all Arabs and all Muslim countries.
So the problem is Hasan just doesn't know any history whatsoever. Or he just hates Arabs because he's Turkish and they do. So who the fuck knows? Hasan is probably, as a Turkish person, Hasan is always going to be the one that's more at risk of being racist here than anybody in the West. After every single major war that Israel won, Jewish people kind of got the feeling that they were less and less welcome in the Arab states that they were living in. And this is probably true. There were some pogroms. There was, it's not like the Jews got to keep any of the shit they had when they left. But the people were not happy with Arabs in a lot of these Arab countries were not happy with the Jews living there when Israel started to win wars. So a lot of the people ended up, there's like push and pull factors. A lot of them also wanted to go to Israel because like, oh shit, we have our own country now, like peace. And they left too, but...
Countries. It is a way to justify why Israel must exist. Everybody hates us. We have to live in Israel. Otherwise, Holocaust everywhere, right? Now, the irony, of course, is one must ask the question like, okay, pre-1948, how did a lot of Jews get there, as a matter of fact? if Arabs are so anciently and antiquatedly anti-Semitic, why was the Ottoman Empire seen as a fucking safe land for Jews, where Arabs, Arab Muslims, Arab Christians, and Arab Jews could live side by side? Why did Spanish Jews actually come?
I don't know what he's talking about there. They like Jews always lived. Any non-Muslim lived as a second-class citizen in the Ottoman Empire. And you can go and talk to a Zionist or a Jew, because I always have these lists ready. But there's like a list of all like the massacres and shit that occurred to Jews under the Ottoman Empire. Like, but whatever, I guess.
And exist under the banner of the Ottoman Empire, as a matter of fact. And before people say, oh, they have to pay jizya. Yes, I know. But Muslims pay zakat, which is obviously a larger percentage of your fucking income. And jizya meant that you didn't actually have to serve in the military.
Jizya didn't mean that you didn't have to serve in the military. It means you weren't allowed to serve in the military. Yes, you paid jizya, which was a different type of tax. But the reason why you paid that tax is because you weren't a member of the real society, of the Ummah. You weren't part of the Muslim population for real. You had your own separate tax, your own separate systems, your own separate things. You weren't allowed to participate in all the different areas of the government, although you could in some limited fashions. And you didn't participate in the military or whatever. You were just basically there as like an animal to be kind of like shepherded and tended to by the Muslim population. But
okay, and in comparison to being fucking ethnically cleansed in like the Inquisition,
one might call it apartheid. Actually, it would be, yeah.
It was a far more favorable position.
That's crazy that he describes it that way, though. Base, but actually based. I think it's based. Good job, Hasan. True.
The important point is that Ethan thinks Palestinians returning to Israel will be dangerous for racist reasons, like the Palestinians are all Hamas, because what's the difference between a teacher from Gaza and a teacher from Europe visiting Israel? One would be dangerous and the other not. Exactly. And even if he doesn't personally, if you were to ask that question, even if he doesn't personally believe that, yeah, I know. Also, Iraqis want their Jewish neighbors back. It's from 972 magazine. Months after a Shiite cleric won the parliamentary elections, Iraq said Jews are welcome on an online poll, and the matter suggests that Iraqis are ready to discuss the right of return more than Israelis are.
I don't know anything about this because I haven't looked into it, but my guess is it's completely and totally misrepresented, because I would never trust Hasan on anything related to this, but I don't have the information on it, so I can't say.
Yeah, I guess they just want them to return so they can fucking kill them, right? That's what it is. That's probably what it is. These sinister Arabs, they just want them to come back so they can kill them. Fuck. I'm going to keep this clip going. Eventually, I might have to rely on this again, because I think it's very instructive of his attitude overall on the position. Ironic, because I think this was when he was like also yelling at Olivia for liking a post on Instagram that said Palestine will never die from the river to the sea.
Basically, anything is fair game for the
one known Jew. We know him. We love him.
Zebulon.
He's the one Afghan Jew.
They were forced to leave their homes, their lives, their property, and migrate to the only place in the world that would accept them, which was Israel. The irony of
They didn't even accept them. They didn't even accept them. Ben Gurion said Arab Jews are like dust, okay? The Ashkenazi Jews that were controlling Israel at the time literally despised the Arab Jews. You don't even know that.
That's absolutely not true. They did live together, and there was a lot of back and forth on living together and in harmony. Like, again, this is easily disproven, because if you look at the first resolution that had to do with dividing the lands between Arabs and Jews, people like Hasan will say things, and I'm sure he'll bring up this fact. They were going to give 55% of the land to the Jews and 45% of the land to the Arabs. So firstly, the vast majority of what was promised to the Jews was going to be the Negev Desert, which is an empty wasteland of fucking nothing, okay? The Palestinians had basically the entirety of the West Bank. But also, the Arab land under the partition was like 99% Arabs. The Jewish land under the partition was going to be 55% Jews and 45% Arabs. The Jews accepted that partition. The idea that they would accept a partition where there were 55% of the population against 45% Arabs, but they hated them and wanted them all into dust is so disingenuous. It's so stupid.
Part of the fucking Israeli history. They unironically were disgusted by them. They thought that they would have to teach them how to use silverware. Israel always was a Western colonial operation, and all of a sudden...
That might be true, that they might have looked down on them to some extent. Like, that's not completely and totally unbelievable to me. But again, not to sound like a Western, crazy, I love the West and ha ha ha. But like, the Jews were significantly more advanced when it came to developing cities and everything else versus the Arabs there. That's just a fact. I don't know how else to deal with that. Like, you can look to the Peel Commission if you really want. Text of Peel Commission. I think when he talks about taxes, until recent years, the public finances allowed no great scope for development in these social services. The accumulation of a considerable surplus was a feature of the 4 years beginning 1932. And there were grounds for a conservative attitude towards the development. The conclusion that the existence of a large surplus reflects undue parsimony is not borne out by close analysis, since the entire surplus is found to be so heavily mortgaged that there is little more than a reasonable provision for existing commitments. If the inward flow of capital, which is the most singular feature of the economy of Palestine, were to be arrested, there is no reason why the removal of exceptional advantage should result in perjury, though there might be some reduction in the standard of living until the new economy is established. In the event of a prolonged period of economic stagnation, the danger of an exodus of capital capital cannot be altogether excluded. That huge inflow of capital were part of what the Jews did. There were two organizations that the Zionist Council set up. I'm trying to remember what they were. One had to do with managing the money, and the other had to do with managing people, maybe. But basically, they tried to make sure that there was a lot of capital flowing into Palestine, into the Palestinian area, to fund a lot of the Jewish people that were settling there and starting to work. There was a huge concerted effort to make this happen. It is not possible in the absence of adequate statistics to measure the truth of the Arab complaint that industrial protection chiefly benefits the Jews and that its burdens are chiefly borne by the Arabs. It is hoped that the new Department of Statistics may soon inquire into the incidence of taxation, that the new duties will be considered in relation to the whole burden of taxation and not merely as affecting the particular industry. There's no question as to the need of increasing the export trade and finding markets for the ever-increasing citrus output after examining... okay, hold on. This isn't exactly what I was looking for. Give me a second. It's been a long time since I read this shit. Up until now, the Arab cultivator has benefited on the whole, both from the work by the British administration and the presence of Jews in the country, but the greatest care must now be exercised to see that in the event of further sales of land by Arabs to Jews, the rights of any Arab tenant or cultivators are preserved. So this is referencing, remember what I said before, Jews were buying up land, and once they bought the land up, because they only believed in Jewish labor, they would kick the Arabs out. The Brits obviously saw that this was causing a lot of Arabs to get understandably ass-banned, because they're like, what the fuck? I don't even know who the fuck you bought this from, and now you're kicking me and my family out of here, where we've lived here for however fucking long. So the Brits tried to curb this as well. Thus, alienation of land should only be allowed where it's possible to replace extensive by intensive cultivation. In the hill districts, there could be no expectation of finding accommodation for any large increase in the rural population at present. For many years to come, the mandatory power should not exempt or should not attempt to facilitate the close settlement of the Jews in the hill districts generally. The shortage of land is due less to purchase by Jews than to the increase in the Arab population. Oh, people don't like to talk about this either because they like to pretend that all the Palestinians that lived in the Middle East, in the Palestine area were there for generations. That's not true. Once a lot of Jews started to move in, a whole bunch of Arabs started to move there as well because they were like, oh, hold on, I don't like the way that this is looking. So the population was increasing because of Jews coming in, but it was also increasing a lot because surrounding Arabs were starting to move in as well. The Arab claims that the Jews have obtained too large a proportion of good land cannot be maintained. Much of the land now carrying orange groves with sand dunes or swamps and uncultivated when it was bought. The Jews did rework a lot of this land. People don't like to talk about that either, but it's true. The problem of immigration has been aggravated by three factors: the drastic restrictions imposed on immigration in the United States, because the U.S. didn't want any more Jews. After the first two aliyahs failed and Jews started to go to the U.S., I think the U.S. was like, fuck Jews, get them out of here. Two, the advent of the National Socialist government in Germany. So the Nazis were intensely anti-Semitic even before any of the Holocaust bullshit. Remember, this was 1936, so you didn't have like your death camps or anything yet. I'm not even sure if I don't know when the first concentration camp started, but they were still pretty anti-Semitic. And three, the increasing economic pressure on the Jews in Poland. The continuous impact of a highly intelligent and enterprising race backed by large financial resources on a comparatively poor indigenous community on a different cultural level may produce in time serious reactions. The principle of economic absorptive capacity, meaning that considerations of economic capacity and these alone should determine immigration, is at present inadequate and ignores factors in the situation which wise statesmanship cannot disregard. So like the Jewish people, again, and not to get into any racialized essentialist bullshit or any racist shit, they came with better, they were Western European minded, they had better strategies for cultivating and developing land and for building cities and for economies and for market, like they just were better equipped for all of this, whereas a lot of the Arabs that existed on this land were just kind of like subsistence, like they grew and they bought and sold what they needed basically for them and their families to survive. Okay, that's more or less, okay, sorry.
They needed more manpower because it's obviously a ethno-religious supremacist ideology, but they simultaneously were like, well, these guys that are here, they're kind of barbaric because they're kind of Arabized. We need to make them Westerners again. And they were horrible. There was literally a fucking child adoption scheme, a child kidnapping scheme that Yemeni Jewish children were literally subjected to. What the fuck are you?
I don't even know what that's in reference to, but...
talking about? Oh my God. They literally had a Yemenite children affair. They stole the fucking children. They literally... Oh, and it still continues to this day. Ethiopian Jews are fucking sterilized by the Israeli state. People get really mad when you say that. They don't do it anymore, but they did that. Avi Shlem's experiences when he first arrived in Israel also shows that it's best to call them Israelis, not Jews. He wasn't treated as a Jew in group when he first arrived to Israel, even though he was literally Jewish. Call them what they were. White Euro supremacist colonizers, because saying the Jews is literally omitting all the people the Jews didn't consider to be Jewish, even though they literally were Jewish.
I mean, it is true that there were issues, especially early on, between brown Jews and white Jews. The Jewish people that were coming from Europe were largely Ashkenazi in origin, and the Jews that ended up immigrating after, because Avi Shlaim came in when Jews fled Iraq, I think in 52, in the early 50s, I think. a lot of the Jews that came from the surrounding Arab states were, is it Mizrahi? Were they looked like Arabs basically, right? They were of a kind of a different ethnic background, and there was that colorism, as there is in all places, between white European Jews that were more sophisticated and came from the West and had all of their, their reading and their technology and all that bullshit, versus the other Jews that had kind of come from the surrounding Arab states that weren't as developed as some of the European Jews. So that, I mean, that did exist as an issue early on for sure, and to some extent even today, people would argue there is racism inside Israel today that is between Jewish people depending on the color of your skin and all that.
And by the way, some of the aftermath of all of that fucking brutal re-education that Arab Jews were subjected to is part of the reason why they had to, you know how like Irish people in America are cops more often than not? You're like, what the fuck did that happen? In a similar vein, a lot of the Arab Jews in Israeli society became some of the most intensely right-wing reactionary people in Israeli society so that they could be a part of the Zionist project, to show that they were loyal soldiers of the Zionist project. That's where the likes of Itamar Ben-Gvir come from. Itamar Ben-Gvir is an Iraqi Jew, okay? He is Kurdish and Arab. Why is he such a fucking freak? Because he had to prove himself.
Okay. This whole situation is that after the 1948 war, when Israel won the war to declare its independence,
Yeah, here's a New York Times article about the abductions, so people don't call you an anti-Semite conspiracy theorist. It's not. It's like reservations. It's the same process. Disappeared children of Israel. In the state of Israel's early years, a number of parents in immigrant transit camps were told that their babies had died. The families believed that the babies were abducted by the Israeli authorities in the 1950s and were illegally put up for adoption to childish Ashkenazi families, Jews of European descent. A younger generation is demanding answers. They did that because they thought a lot of the Arab Jews were too Arabized, and because they were a white supremacist in their own way, because they were a white Eurocentric supremacist group of people that did not want to be like the Arabs in the region, they wanted to desperately and immediately fucking engage in the process of re-education for a lot of these people.
Arab countries got super anti-Semitic against their own Jewish citizenry that had nothing to do with Israel. And as a result...
But why doesn't he have to smoke for Germany? This is what I understand. So, okay, what's a far larger crime? What's a far greater, more consequential...
Does he think that Ethan supports the Holocaust? Or I don't know, what do you mean? What?
Crime, you know what I mean? Oh, Jews were being harmed in fucking Morocco or in Algeria or in Egypt, okay? In these nasty Arab countries, Arab Jews were being harmed. They had nowhere else to go. They had to go to Israel. Okay. Who harmed Jews more? Arabs or systematically destroyed the lives of 6 million Jews? Germany. Why the fuck don't you advocate to build Israel on Germany then? What do you mean? Why is it? Why is it that you don't attribute the crimes of the Holocaust to the Germans the same way that you say the real reason why a lot of Arab Jews became Zionists is because of the Arab...
This is kind of like a goofy point, but some people like to try to make this argument that Israel is set up as like a punishment for... it's a punishment to the Palestinians and blaming them for the Holocaust, when in reality, that's just the place that Jews happen to pick where they're like, fuck it, we're going to go here. I mean, that's kind of a goofy...
Arabs. Because of the fucking scary Arabs. Yeah, of course Germany atoned, because they didn't have to be fucking ethnically cleansed. You know who got ethnically cleansed?
Remember, I'm pretty sure there were a ton of Germans that were ethnically cleansed. I think it was... Well, the number 14 million is coming to mind, but I don't... Or 16 million. I think it was a fuck ton of them got kicked out of a lot of the European countries that they lived in after World War II. But I guess we just... Well, a lot of people got moved around after World War II in a lot of different places. But I guess we just don't pretend we pretend none of that happened, I guess? I don't know.
The Palestinians, who had nothing to do with the Holocaust. 11,000 Palestinians fought against Nazi Germany before people say the Grand Mufti or some other bullshit. The Grand Mufti was a fucking colonial vestige.
The Grand Mufti, I don't know if you'd say he was a colonial vestige. I think he represented a lot of the Palestinian desire on the time, and he was probably the strongest voice for being having a Palestinian identity at the time. But it's very hard to defend the Mufti because that guy was fucking unhinged and like was a literal, I think went on to fucking like recruit for the Nazis and shit. He was pretty unhinged. So I think they try to like disavow that guy as much as possible.
Okay. The notion that Germany's on the good side because they become performatively anti-Semitism and they're shamed for the Holocaust despite doing the Holocaust, whereas Arab countries famously did not do the Holocaust, yet we consider Germany to be an ally of Israel and Jews. Yeah, exactly, because it's fucking Eurocentric supremacist bullshit. That is precisely the reason why. Because Arabs are barbaric.
Jesus.
Unless you're an Arab Jew, in which case, okay, we'll give you a leg up in this circumstance, in Israel at least. You know?
They kicked them all out.
Didn't Palestinians have some sort of deal with the Nazis? Did I read that wrong somewhere? Okay, it's... Kind of, but everybody tried to kind of make deals with the Nazis initially. Even the Yishuv, even pre-Israel, they were trying to make deals with the Nazis. Although this was up to, I want to say 41, 42. I think it was like right before the death camps were discovered. And I think this were the more radical. So the Yishuv is what the Jews called basically their land in Israel prior to the formation of the Israeli state. There were three main fighting wings. You had the Haganah, which was like the main, this was the huge force, I think it was like 20,000 or whatever plus strong. Like this was your main military fighting force that tried to conduct themselves like a main military. And then you had these two smaller segments that were, we'll say unhinged and maybe terrorists, the Irgun and the Lehi. And I want to say it was the Lehi that I think were kind of like reaching out to Nazi Germany, trying to make deals with like, hey, like how about we like work together, maybe we can do this. But you have to remember when they were trying to make, when you were trying to make these deals, I believe this was happening at the same time that the Brits were saying no more Jews are allowed to go to Israel. Remember, Israel felt super ass pain about Britain from 1939, 1940 onwards, because Britain had basically said no more Jews are allowed to immigrate. And Jews felt like they were getting backstabbed, and to some extent they were, because Britain promised that there would be some Jewish immigration to this area for a long time, and then they basically said no more, and now Jews were like, well, we're getting word that our people are taking showers and not coming out as more than dust, so I don't know, it's kind of starting to feel kind of weird. And the Brits were like, well, you guys are all causing too much trouble now, so fuck you. So yeah, but at some point, like the Mufti, I think, ended up working with the Nazis more directly. I think he literally went to other countries to do recruitment for him. It's kind of unhinged. But the early Jews were also looking at the Nazi party like, well, maybe we should work with these guys because the Brits seem like they're fucking us over. So I don't like to condemn anybody on like, did you work with Nazi Germany early on? Like nobody really knows who's going to win these wars sometimes, and you know, you got to work with whatever the fuck you got, you know.
1 million plus of them, and force them to go the one place they hated the most, Israel. And now those same people that forced them out of their homes are telling them they don't belong there. So if the Jews of Israel...
Yeah, brother, I'm sorry. You don't understand. It is not a land without people for a people without a land. There were people there, okay? You can't just act like this was empty space that needed to be occupied, okay? It wasn't empty space that needed to be occupied.
So it was largely empty space. People, that's an early quote. Was that Herzl or was it Ben-Gurion that said that early on? Ben-Gurion was a big leader in Israel pre-formation of the country and became their first prime minister. It's why it's Ben-Gurion International Airport of Tel Aviv. I don't remember who said it, but the quote initially was, I think it was Herzl that said it when he found Palestine. He was like, look, we're a people without a land, and this is a land without a people. Now, there were some people that lived there, kinda, but they were like very much like scattered over the area. It's not like there was an established civilization. Like, was it insensitive to say that? For sure. But I mean, like, it's fucking early 1900s, okay? People said a lot of crazy. People said and did worse shit.
Okay, under the Ottoman Empire, Palestinians lived there. 2% of the population before the Aliyah process started, before the Balfour Declaration was...
Like, there weren't that many, like, the majority of the Levant, which is what this was called beforehand, the majority of the Levant was just empty space. Like, nobody fucking lived there at all, but...
Jewish, okay? The rest were the ancient... Here's the other side of the story. The ancient Jews that lived there, that stayed there, became Arabized, became Islamized throughout that process. So when you're actually when Israel's fucking killing Palestinians, they're unironically killing their own fucking ancestors, too, in terms of the 3,000 years of history. But I'm not even gonna get into that shit, because people get real fucking touchy about that.
Well, because the people that were turned into Arabs, or rather, the people that were turned into Muslims were usually done so because if you didn't, you were either killed or like because I believe that the Ottoman Empire, I think, was more friendly than some of, like, how many big caliphates were there? Was it like 5 or 6? And some of them were very unfriendly towards other people, and you kind of had to convert or they would just kill you. So it's kind of a tasteless talking point to bring up, but I don't know.
You're just killing your own ancestors in that process. We're like, well, you're barbaric and you're brutal and ruthless. You must be killed because I need this land now.
Are surrounded by Islamic militant terrorist groups that have...
What? Algerian Jews were given a choice between Algerian citizenship and French citizenship, and guess what they chose? You're not cooking? Oh, you're talking to him. Yeah, I already brought that up. I know. I did. He brought up Algeria, and it's such a clear-cut indication that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He just saw this goddamn... He saw his goddamn meme on Instagram and thought he cracked the fucking code, dude. That's how little he cares about this.
Remember, this Algerian talking point was brought up a lot because I think Palestinians saw the initial... when did the French get completely kicked out? They wanted to model themselves after that, but they realized, especially after 48, and so many Jewish people from the Middle East started to immigrate into Israel, they were like, fuck, this model doesn't work because we can't really rightfully call Israel a colony because these people don't see themselves as having a place to go back to, which is probably one of the reasons why the Jews in the area fought so much, is because it's like, it's basically do or die. Like, we don't have an area to retreat to if we fail. So that model of like, oh, look, it's like kicking the French out of Algeria, that propaganda model was abandoned by the Palestinians and they stopped using that talking point. But for some reason, people in the West still do. It's whatever.
This issue that he's supposed to know about, right? Most of them are granted citizenship, not even a choice. Please read this. I'm Algerian. If you need a source on the collaboration, divide and conquer methods. I know. Fuck. It's so crazy to me that he just literally plastered this on the fucking context nuke to make it seem as though all of these unique and individual, countries. Some aren't even fucking Arab, by the way. He puts Afghanistan on there. He's not even Arab. All of these guys were all of these guys were all being, they were systematically erasing Jews from their population. They like forced them out. Meanwhile, half the fucking people that he's pointing to didn't even go to, some of them didn't even go to Israel. There's some of them went to France and then went to Israel afterwards, but voluntarily.
Voluntarily.
Oh.
LOL.
One known Jew. We know
Their lives, the property, and migrate to the only place in the world that would accept them, which was Israel. The irony of this whole situation is that after the 1948 war, when Israel won the war to declare its independence, the Arab countries got super anti-Semitic against their own Jewish citizenry.
Yeah, they kind of did.
That had nothing to do with Israel. And as a result, they kicked them all out, 1 million plus of them, and forced them to go the one place they hated the most, Israel. And now those same people that forced them out of their homes.
Well, I would say Ethan presents this as too one-sided here. Again, I think most people would agree, most scholars would say these are push-pull factors. They kind of got pushed out of their place, but it's not like the Jews didn't want to go to Israel. I mean, they would have probably preferred to stay, but at that point, like, Israel had this like fucking heroic story. Keep in mind that we kind of see Israel today as like this, you know, militant, you know, fucks all the Arabs up country. But back in the day, Jews were like, all the anti-Semitic stereotypes and tropes that people talk about Jews were like 20 times more back then. And the Arabs were the proud warriors. Remember, you had the Khatam, you had all of your caliphates. You had your Ottoman Empire. They had this empire that spanned, you know, like this massive region, and they had been here for so long, and they fought the Christians in the Crusades and all this shit. And like, like the Arabs had a very proud, you know, warrior background, and then the Jews didn't. So they were, I mean, some, I think when they went to Israel, were also a little bit hyped to have their own country and everything too. So
Are telling them they don't belong there.
Bro, how do you not understand? Bro, he said now those same people that forced them out of their homes say that they don't belong there. Do you not understand what Ethan is saying? These are not the same people, you fucking moron. You racist moron. The people that don't want them there right now are the Palestinians who were ethnically cleansed. You are putting the crimes of other Arab countries and what they might have done, which you don't even fucking know, by the way, on the Palestinian Arabs that don't want to get their shit kicked in and don't want to be removed from their homes. Fuck! Kaya, please. Scared the shit out of me.
like, it's funny. It's just so funny to see this from like a Western perspective. Like, oh, you're being racist. Oh, it's not all Arabs. And it's like, I guess you can take that perspective. But like when the PLO and when the Palestinians in the past have fought against Israel, they're always invoking the Arab identity. They're always calling for, I mean, like if you look at Hamas, they call for global jihad against the Jews. Global jihad. Every Muslim has an obligation to fight against the Jewish occupation. So they do it to themselves, and I don't even think they would deny it. Like they see their struggle, or a lot of them, as kind of sort of one and the same. But I guess for Hasan, you can't bring that up, or it's like racist or something. I don't know.
He's literally saying, well, now these fucking nasty Arabs don't want the Jews to live here. Do you see this? How does he not understand? How does he not understand this argument? These are totally separate people, okay? If one is the wronged party, the other is the party doing the wrong.
Like, it's not really that simple.
But this is the Jewish virtual library map of the complex. I mean, this is a classic Hasbro shit, okay? That's what it is.
It's not Hasbro. It's really cringe and really lame to call this Hasbro shit. Like, the Jewish Virtual Library is just a good source where they just back up and archive a bunch of original documents. Like, that's what a lot of this is. Like, or at least I haven't come across anything on this site. That's what I was just reading the Appeal Commission from. That's just like wrong. And also, people like Hasan will talk about how evil the Likud party is and their original platform for saying that the Likud party won't ever recognize a Jewish state. You can find that Likud party platform literally on the Jewish Virtual Library website. So I mean, like, you can attack it, I guess, because you don't like it since it's Jewish on it. But generally, the most of the stuff hosted here is just like original sources and factual documents and shit. But
Little old Israel. Didn't Ben Shapiro do the same video in October 2023? We already reacted to all of this at the point. Yeah, we did. He sees them all as the same. Dan thinks saying the Arabs is parallel to saying the Israelis. Wait, what? Dan said this?
There's a collection of a bunch of nations that all collectively kick the Jews out.
Yeah, I know. No, I know.
If he said the fucking Jews, what is he talking about?
Yeah, I guess more comparable.
Wait, what? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't say that. Yeah. If I were to say,
it's
these fucking Jews, you would lose your goddamn mind.
Does this get any more entertaining? Oh my God, this is so fucking boring. Kill me. I hate this. I'm gonna use the restroom again.
Oh my God. He only...
Hold on.
Bro, he literally only can understand bigotry if it's Jewish people in the fucking crosshairs. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God.
I gotta grab something. Hold on one second.
That's crazy.
It would be the fucking Israelis.
It would be
like saying the fucking Israelis is different than saying the fucking Arabs. You're not even saying the fucking Moroccans kicked the Jews out, okay? You're saying the fucking Arabs kicked the Jews out. This is so stupid. What are they doing over there? What is this? Even the crew try to
they're anti-Semitic. 900,000 Jews, approximately 700 to 900,000, were forced to become Zionists, not by choice, but because they were forced out. The vast majority went to fucking Arabs.
Why was that cut? What the fuck cut was that? And then
Hasan is smiling because he's like, yep, I got the clip I needed.
I didn't even know what he was talking about because I was speaking honestly and I was speaking passionately. And obviously throughout this whole conversation, we've both been using fucking as a, it's
Dude, if I were to treat Jews as a monolith in the way that he treats Arabs, he wouldn't have to fucking constantly do delusional shit to infer anti-Semitism out of places where there's no anti-Semitism. You could just be like, all right, well, here it is. I'll let this speak for itself. Even when I talk about Israel and Israel's own demographic considerations, I always take the extra step to say Israeli Jews versus Israeli Arabs is their own classification because they're an ethno-religious supremacist country. I do not agree with this classification, but whenever I look at Israeli polling, when I say Israeli Jews, I literally will always readily immediately fucking slap that on there because I know some motherfucker is waiting like a hawk to be like, see, he said Jews. He said Jews. That's it. Because I know how this works. I know how this fucking works. He can say whatever the fuck he wants about Arabs, and no one is going to be like, oh, that's a little racist. I don't really understand what the fuck you're talking about. But I say something that is even remotely misconstrued. It's over. It's over. Okay? My career is fucking over. This is precisely the reason why after a fucking entire year and a half of endless coverage on this issue, the only thing he can fucking point to is like, oh, well, Ian Idubbbs grabbed the fucking bleach sword that I know is not a swastika, but I'm going to act like it's a swastika for the fucking sake of this argument to make it seem like you're anti-Semitic. He can't even point to anything. He can't even point to anything. Oh my God.
And everybody does it in English, especially when you're like getting impassioned. You say this fucking this, that. It's like,
is Islamophobia more acceptable than anti-Semitism? Come on, dude. Are you out of your fucking mind? Yes, of course it is. And anyone who tells you that is not the case is delusional. What are you talking about? Dude, a 6-year-old was stabbed to death by their landlord after October 7. The 6-year-old was Muslim, okay? The landlord after October 7 did an Islamophobic hate crime and stabbed a 6-year-old tenant to death. If there was a role reversal where a 6-year-old Jewish boy was stabbed to fucking death, there would be like an understandable, he was Palestinian, there would have been an understandable outcry. That outcry did not even exist for this child. It's fucking ridiculous.
Go to where Idubbbs joins. We're going to skip. Yeah, give me... Where does Idubbbs join? Jesus Christ. Hello? Oh, we got him.
And through the interwebs, he's actually Dude. Are you here? All right, hold on. I'm unlocking the door. Wait, no, I don't see you. Oh, you're outside the door. Hold on. 1 second.
Powerful because everyone's afraid of being labeled as a genocide denier. Pierce Morgan, with decades of experience, immediately surrenders when the genocide card is pulled.
When you're just a fucking stenographer, you're not a truth teller.
He has every right to defend himself. And grow up here, Pierce. Stand up for yourself. It's time to stop being intimidated by these online overnight activists who couldn't even point to Gaza on a map before October 7th. Like Hasan, for example.
Doesn't know where Yemen is? Okay, I'm gonna click close. I'm closing it. I'm closing it.
True.
I think. Nope.
True.
Dude, I'm memeing.
Oh my God. What? Link me the full clip of this. Excuse me? You can't own anything? Bro, I'll be honest. I didn't know fuck all about Israel or Palestine prior to October 7th. I couldn't have found either one on a map. Honestly, I didn't know fuck all. I'll own that, though. I'll say that. I learned all this shit post October 7th. Hasan has got this position where he's like, oh, I've studied this topic for decades, for years and years and years, bro. I've studied this topic so much, and you just got into it. This was not a meme. Give me the... Here it is.
Iran. Okay, dude. Yeah, I don't. Shut up. Okay. Nope, that was a failure.
Pakistan.
That was good.
Also, listen, some of these things, again,
I think Kashmir.
just to be clear, okay, I'm not going to be critical on anybody for lack of knowledge on a thing because there's a lot of shit that I don't know and a lot of stuff that I've just learned recently, which is fair, okay? But if you're going to brag about knowing so much about geopolitics and shit, okay? Like, even if I knew nothing about where Pakistan was, well, what do I know? I do know that Pakistan fights with India a lot. People talk about like World War III. This big chunk here is probably India. And I also know that Pakistan also fights between India and China over like disputed land. So if this is India and this is China, I think we can probably safely know those two big things, right? Then Pakistan is probably somewhere in here, right? Maybe it's this long dude. Maybe it's over here with this guy and they're still fighting over land. So maybe you're one of these weird, like at least you'd be like in this ballpark, right? It's probably one of these guys. But like, bro, again, I just want to be clear. If you don't know because you have no fucking idea, that's fine. But to brag about your extensive foreign policy knowledge for so long.
Think Kashmir? I don't know.
Oh, even his chat's trying to give him hints. Think Kashmir, yeah.
It's no. 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 They got it.
Okay.
I have no idea where the Philippines are, dude. I'm done. I can't do this. The first try. That was the first try. I don't know if you guys saw this. Okay. Where is it? Like here?
He had written an article for the Young Turks on Yemen at this point. Oof, is that true?
No, I closed it up.
Oh, no.
Oh, got it. Bro. Those aren't even...
Okay, Yemen.
Really?
Okay. So what do we know about Yemen? I mean, historically, I guess, I don't know, this year... Well, no, I guess Saudi Arabia has always kind of been goofing in Yemen. And you know that they've got, there's, I believe, the Port of Aden. I think that was a British important thing or whatever that leads out into the ocean here. So maybe somewhere here in the Gulf-ish, maybe we would know. What do we guess?
I'm done, dude. I'm done.
Actually, I shouldn't call this the Gulf. That's not fair. This, when you talk about the Gulf states, this is the Gulf, right? It's this up here, actually, right? This is the, oh my God. It's the Mediterranean and the Suez Canal into the Red Sea, right? And then, I don't know if this is called something. Eritrea has a port here. Djibouti.
I'm done.
I don't know what this thing is called here, this inlet.
Okay, I'm done. I can't play this any further. I'm not pretending. I'm actually this bad.
Uh-oh.
I can't. I don't know which is which, dude. Close the cookies? Oh, yeah, true. Doesn't know where Yemen is? Okay, I'm going to click close. I'm closing it. I'm closing it. I think nope. Got it. One of these. Okay.
Maybe it's just memeing the entire time, though.
That's the Philippines. There you go. Hungary. This no. Is it? No, where is it? Scroll. I
More?
nice. I shaved because click on Tanzania. Tuvalu? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Tiburon. Okay, dude, yeah.
Wait, that was it? What the fuck? Wait, there's so much more. Ugh. Okay, fuck it. Where's the supercut then? Full VOD of the map game? No, I don't want him to do this for 30 minutes. There's like a supercut where he like... he doesn't even know where Turkey is somehow. Base, I guess? Can you point where Andorra is? No, because fuck that. I don't do the micronations. Andorra is one of these... It's either this thing here between Spain and France. I think it might be that one. Or it's this guy here. I don't know. One of these stupid fucking... Oh, okay. I don't... I don't even know. That doesn't... Like, isn't that like a fucking TV show about the Jedi? I don't fucking know. Literally not even a real thing. No one cares. Click the links on the timestamp. Trust its worth. Look at this. Based. Okay. Nobody has... Okay, well, nobody has the other link, and we're just like retarded shit, so...
I'm fucking memeing.
He's memeing.
I'm fucking memeing.
Got it. How can you claim to actually...
Dude. What's up, Ian?
Oh, no.
Hold on.
My good friend. These were memes. Hello?
Orange justice.
iDubbbz is doing an anti-Semitic dance, and through the interwebs, he's actually communicating in a very scary anti-Semitic manner. No, not only am I joking there, I'm gonna show you something. Okay, here, that's another Destiny clip, by the way, classic. Okay,
Classic Destiny clip.
yeah, don't, God forbid you pick up a fucking sword in here. Okay,
I was thinking about doing some sort of ritual in here.
no more swords. Okay.
Oh. Yeah, by the way, chat, anyone not aware, I've seen a lot of people smearing the people in the photo, and Hasan as well. I'm the one who thoughtlessly picked up the sword. We're grabbing a lot of props in Hasan's room, and there are a lot of props.
There's a lot of anti-Semitic props, and he just chose that anti-Semitic one as opposed to the other anti-Semitic ones.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me fix
Like
this.
the Luffy hat.
Yeah. There's a lot of. Is the mic buzzing? No. Yeah. I'm gonna kick you out if you apologize for that, by the way, because that's ridiculous. Yeah, don't even think about that. Okay. Yes, no, yes. Here. So while Ethan posts about me not knowing a single thing about fucking Yemen, okay?
Okay.
This is from, I don't know, like 2019, I guess, where I'm memeing about Yemen. This is me in fucking 2016 talking about Yemen. What's going on in Yemen? And why aren't we talking about U.S. involvement? On Huffington Post by Hasan Piker, contributor, political commentator, /
What is that supposed to prove? That you were talking about this before you even knew where it was on the map? What? How is that supposed to help anything? This is the turkey thing? Wait.
Beak, one of the coolest flags on the planet. Don't you live on Earth, dude? Just get it right. Making leftists look bad. Do you know where Turkey is? Yeah, like around here somewhere. Turkey is all of this, dude. Where is it, dude? You can tell it's China. What is it like? What is it like here? Where? There it is. Eswatini? What the hell is? Is it Finland? Do a political commentary.
Okay. Well, I feel like that was an Ottoman Empire joke more than just a bad geography joke, but I don't even know. I think that was just a joke, but I don't care. What is this article? Let's try to break it down. Wait, do people like Hasan hate the Arab Spring? The Yemen civil war starting point can be traced back to a political transition of power between Yemen's longtime authoritarian president, Ali Abdullah Saleh, who resigned after 33 years under pressure from 9 months of deadly Arab Spring protests. He could just be saying that as a descriptor, though. Maybe he's not opposed to them. I don't know. I mean, this is largely correct, but it just kind of reads like he's just quoting a Wikipedia article or something. Oh, okay.
A member of the Young Turks. Let's talk about the U.S. involvement in war crimes in the Middle East because no one else is. Donald Trump's sexual assault allegations. Hillary Clinton's transcripts reveal the true positions of most importantly Kim Kardashian's recovery for the gruesome break-in that occurred in Paris. These three headlines dominated the news this past week, crowding out the comparatively unimportant news that a Navy destroyer in the Red Sea fire.
Okay, I don't know if I care about this so much. Hold on. What is this?
An insane thing to say. Also, $6,500. Suck my dick. You buy fucking new watches every goddamn week. That's like worth $100,000. What the fuck do you mean? It's not even a good enough indulgence to fucking actually do the amount of deplatforming that you fucking engaged in.
Jesus.
Okay, open up your fucking wallet a little bit harder. Jesus Christ. Oh, he's gonna clip this? Suck my fucking cock from the back, you stupid bitches who constantly fucking say, he's gonna clip this, he's gonna clip this. I don't give a shit.
Wait,
He can
what does sucking a cock from the back mean? What does that mean?
clip everything. He can suck my dick from the fucking back, dude. Suck my fucking cock, okay? All of you dumb fucking optics lovers.
Nose
oh my
and ass?
God.
Not the optics frogs, true. Okay. Give me the highlights. This
80,000 views.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trump finally answers the big question. 992,000 views. This is just his clip channel. Hold on. There's more. Let me show you his other channel, his YouTube channel.
Okay.
Where the fuck's his YouTube channel? He has another one. This is just a clip one. Dude, I love showing people that are just completely oblivious to this side of the world, this shit. Latest video, Kanye's back. 65,000 views 50 minutes ago. He posts like peaceful protests got so much worse 22 hours ago. My honest reaction to Content Cop. About this Content Cop. He can't stop talking about me.
What is he like?
What does he say?
Like, what does he say that people? So, because you said that people that live like this, like that's what resonates.
Yeah.
Like the living in the.
Who is this guy? Does Hasan just bring on like these totally random people and expect them to understand or get anything about like the extended drama that these two people have that Hasan and Ethan have with each other?
Deviled and disgusting.
Says yeah, based a lot. Sometimes he says there it is. There it is. That's it. He watches.
Sex Pestany.
Asmongold Gold's officially North America's most watched streamer so far in 2025. He currently has more hours watched than Kai Cenat and iShowSpeed.
Oof. That's gotta hurt.
Shit.
That's gotta hurt, Hasan. Oh no.
He says the R word a lot.
The R word? Wait, is Hasan against that now?
Yeah, based. You just gotta watch over Trump videos and say yeah, based. Oh, here he is.
Doing this thing with like these deportations where they bring in like celebrities to deport
now
people.
It's actually, wait a minute.
Do you understand why I'm so black-pilled?
This is making a bit more sense to me why people become right-wing grifters, because it is that easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy shit.
No, he like doesn't give a shit about any of this
Wait, but this
stuff.
is a problem.
Meanwhile, Hasan is a left-wing grifter who doesn't know fuck all about any of the shit that he talks about, but you know, LOL. LOL, I guess. IG.
YouTube 3 months ago to 4 years ago. I know. Imagine fucking bringing your channel back for this, losing a bunch of subscribers in the process because they forgot that they were subscribed to you to begin with, and the fucking video itself just flops, and your target for the video literally gets no motion, with the exception of like every dumb fuck Hasanabi hater on the planet that already was going to entertain any fuck Hasan video, and you barely get 3.4 million views on it.
Barely.
What
3.4 million.
Flop,
oh
dude.
my god.
Oh my god. What is this? Currently sitting at minus 50,000. Oof. Oof. Yes, because it's not funny. If anything, it's doing relatively well for something that's just not funny. Yes, it's doing relatively well for something that's just not funny because there are a shit ton of fucking losers online who have also, in a similar fashion to Ethan Klein, basically broken their brains into believing whatever kind of insane nonsense someone has hallucinated about me online that they saw on their periphery.
Jesus,
and then,
the projection.
And then go, I need more of this fuck Hasan content. I need a steady flow of fuck Hasan content. Yeah, he got Denims to go from 1K viewers to 10K in the process. Mike from PH tripled. I know.
Yes, our best allies.
It's kind of sad.
Go ahead. He knows.
Destiny, he loses his voice during this, then Idubs comes in and he starts screaming for ages while Idubs just sits there silently.
Reached out. She wants to meet at the Motel 6 tonight at 11.
Excuse me?
Because I'm gonna fuck him for her? Because she's the cuck?
What?
No good?
Okay, Ian?
Him.
Right.
Anissa reached out to me.
You know, the first time that you made the Anissa the cuck joke, it hit really good.
Well,
and I feel like each subsequent one we're getting further and further.
What was wrong with the one with that? I thought that
it just sounded weird, kind of creepy.
Uh-oh.
Well, it is. That's her thing. I wasn't going to show up, by the way.
Okay.
I was gonna send fake Ethan.
Don't overplay that hand.
By the way, Anissa reached out. She wants to meet at the Motel.
Jesus.
Insult.
I'm sure some of them do. I know Google does, right? For example. But it's time to move, right? Well, so for me, like, this is how I'm viewing, like, going on another platform, is that I have considered strongly like moving and like multi-streaming, and I think that I probably will start multi-streaming. And
oh, dude, he's gonna make so much money on YouTube. Holy shit, Hasan's ego is gonna be destroyed. Okay, I love you guys. I'm still abandoning you because I don't love you. I hate you. Coral, cups, knit, save, recover, pearl, but quartz, swords, besides mend, pentacles, opal, heal, wands, I don't know, other spellings of fucking gemstones or something. Okay. Repairing something, heal, mend, knit, recover, or maybe save. Okay. Oh, for a broken bone. Okay. You can knit. A broken bone is knitted. Okay. Besides things that you'd find at a table of knights, swords, cups, wands. I don't know what a pentacle is. Oh, and then this is like besides a thing, right? We can do all of this besides this, or we can do that save for this, but this except this. Tarot, minor arcana suits. Yeah, that's what I meant, obviously, guys. Not including. Easy. Okay. All right. I'll be back tomorrow. I love you guys. It's been fun. Ripper and a cappuccino, poppuccino, hoppuccino, moppuccino, cappuccino, 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 I'll catch you guys next. Stream it on. Be careful. Don't die.